Hey, Brandon here, host of the Devy to Dynasty Football podcast and creator of the Devy Dashboard, the ultimate Devy and C2C resource. So welcome to the channel. If this is your first time here, welcome. Got a great show. We're going to talk about the rookie risers after week one of preseason. Football is back, baby. You can smell it in the air here in Philadelphia. The Nikes are getting a little crisp in the 60s. September is right around the corner, and we got finally some fall ball ahead, and we got our first glimpse of all of our favorite rookies. As a Devy analyst, we've been looking at these players for 3 years, hoping they pan out. And today, I want to talk about some players this past weekend that may have increased their stock just enough or a little bit where they might contribute this year on our Dynasty roster. So, with that said, let's not get too excited. Let's not go overboard, right? Because there were some good performances that we're going to look at. But, we can only take with what we see and kind of, put our own analysis on it. But I thought there were some really good performances and to make us feel a little better about some of these players, and especially the quarterback class, right? We know what happened with the quarterback class, right? I mean, Kenny Pickett first round, the rest, third round or later. Typically, those players don't make it to our dynasty rosters as full-time contributors, but I think there were some glimmers here of these guys maybe being a little better than they, project to be with their current draft capital. So let's talk about Desmond Ridder of Atlanta first. Had a pretty solid game. I think overall the quarterbacks played pretty good. But Desmond Ridder, a game I fully watched, 10 of 22, under 50% completion percentage. Not the greatest, but he did have a lot of balls dropped by his receivers. He ran the ball for 6 yards, for 59 yards as well, so he looked very comfortable, I felt, in the pocket. I mean, can you imagine the jitters that these guys have as their first game on national TV for, their first game in the NFL? So you really have to keep that in mind. If you don't experience that yourself, it's pretty hard to imagine, the nervousness and excitement at the same time that they share. But I thought Ridder looked pretty good. I think, is he the heir apparent of Mariota? I mean, our hope probably is that Ridder, if it were me, I would sit him all year, have him learn. But I have a feeling that Ridder, after that performance, is going to get some ball this year. I wouldn't be surprised at all if by midseason they're not sprinkling him in to really see if he is the future or not, because most likely they will have an early round draft selection next year. And with Stroud and Bryce Young potentially two top 5 quarterback selections, they're going to want to probably see what they have in Ridder if, in fact, they don't have a great season. Stock up for Ridder. I thought he played pretty well. Kenny Pickett, I'll tell you right now, I think the Pittsburgh fans are probably pretty excited. I know the crowd was going nuts. If you watch the highlights, I did not watch this game, but I did see the highlights. Good efficiency, 13 receptor passes completed out of 15 attempts, 95 yards and 2 TDs. He ran 3 times for 16 yards. I thought overall it was a very impressive performance by Pickett. Really led them in the second half. He threw the game-winning touchdown and gave them the victory over Seattle. The crowd was going nuts. So that is what they're hoping to see in Pittsburgh, right? I mean, is he the guy? Is Trubinsky's probably going to start? Again, I think that's a good decision by the Steelers, but nonetheless, Pickett, looked good and might be easing those fears of if any of these quarterbacks are going to hit on our dynasty roster. So stock up on Kenny Pickett. He's probably really happy to get that first game jitters out of the way, and let's see what he looks like this upcoming weekend. Sam Howell, playing for Washington Commanders, as you know, 9 of 16 for 145 yards, ran 3 times for 19 yards and had 2 touchdowns. I thought it was an impressive performance. I really did. Carson Wentz is going to start in Washington, as we know. Sam Howell is a guy that I had ranked 5th in my quarterback class. But you know what I love about Sam Howell is that he's tough. He's an underrated, athletic, I think, tight end who's got that. He showed that mobility. So I think he's listed right now as the 3rd quarterback. And it's going to be Carson Wentz, and Tyler Heineke probably is the number 2 guy. But I think Sam Howell, for his first performance, he's in there in the later part of the second half playing with the scabs. I get it. But all you're doing is looking for someone who looks comfortable in the pocket, who's at least making some plays. It looked like his accuracy was pretty good, but he's a tough competitor. So those were the 3 quarterbacks out of the group that I felt, played pretty well. Now, Willis, I want to talk about here just quickly. I watched this game. I felt that Willis did the same thing he did at Ole Miss. So he's not really a riser, but I just want to mention while I'm recording the show what I saw. And again, he was pulled out of the game, all right, by the coach because he wasn't throwing the ball, right? So we saw that in the Ole Miss game, right? The Ole Miss game last fall was the game that everybody wanted to see, right? It was the big game against the SEC Ole Miss team, and he just looked like the moment was too big for him. He didn't go through his progressions right now. He was 6 for 11 for 107 yards. He ran 5 times for 38 yards and had 1 touchdown. But it's evident that I think Willis needs a lot of time for the mental processing part of the game. And that's probably what most people would say as well if you're reading it online or whatever. But I think Willis has a long way to go. Athletic player, big arm. But again, it's kind of what's up in here in the quarterback, and you've got to be able to do that. Now, as a side note, a lot of people were disappointed with Treylon Burks. There's people putting tweets out about Treylon Burks. He didn't show up. Well, I'll tell you, there's a couple guys on YouTube that put out videos that showed that Treylon Burks was pretty much open the entire time. Looked really good getting open and creating space. It was Willis who wasn't even looking his way and putting the ball where it needed to be. So I think Willis didn't do Treylon Burks any favors. So if you got Treylon Burks, don't hit the panic button just yet. All right, so let's talk about the running backs, right? My favorite running back. I had him 4th in my pre-draft ranks last year. I've been all over Brian Robinson Jr. from the start. Big kid, SEC, physical bruiser, good pass protector. He had 6 carries for 26 yards. He had 2 receptions for 15 yards. So what happened? Antonio Gibson, he's been a fumbler his entire career, goes in the game, fumbles. Brian Robinson Jr. goes in there, and he performs, and he looks pretty good. And I think he's going to take over that backfield, and I'm thrilled because I got him on every Devy squad. He was faded a lot, I think, pre-draft by a lot of guys because of the lack of early production. I don't really care about any of that. The kid's a physical freak who is going to be, I think, just a smash mouth runner for Washington, and I think he is stock up. And the fact that he caught 2 passes for 15 yards, he showed that at Bama, man. He showed that he can catch the ball out of the backfield. So I think he overtakes that backfield. At least that's what I'm hoping for, but I got him in every Devy league, and I'm pretty excited because, I'm stock up for Brian Robinson. I think he showcased himself, and that fumbling problem is probably going to put Gibson on the bench for a little bit. Dameon Pierce, right, out of Houston. When everyone loved the juicy landing spot, right? When he went to Houston, it's like Marlon Mack is there. I think it's going to be between him and Marlon Mack to see actually who runs the rock. But, man, he ran 5 times for 47 yards. He had 1 target in the passing game. He didn't come, down with the ball. But, he just showed he averaged 9.8 yards a carry. It was all over Twitter. The one run that he had showed his elusiveness. The kid can run with power. Just another SEC physical back. Now, I had him ranked 6 overall in my pre-draft ranks on my Devy dashboard. And I kind of was tough critical on him in a video that I posted on this YouTube channel where I didn't really think that he had the footwork and all that. So we kind of saw a little bit of that. So I'm still cautiously optimistic. Dameon Pierce, I could be wrong. He might be the guy. Has a great opportunity. And as we know for running backs in this space, right, guys, it's all about opportunity. He just might take that job and run and just get better and better as the season goes. But big physical running back. That's what you need to be in the NFL. Now, a guy that I had 14th ranked, a guy that I was lower on than most, especially in my Devy dashboard content team, was Jerome Ford. He had 10 carries for 57 yards, had 4 receptions for 45 yards. He had a really explosive 41-yard run and showed all the kind of his traits in that. Again, he looked good. And so what is his opportunity, right? So he was kind of buried in the depth chart right now. As we know, going in, Cleveland, he's got Nick Chubb is there. And then there's all these rumors that Hunt might get traded, might not. But Hunt, after this performance, might get traded. And Jerome Ford might find himself as the RB2 backing up Nick Chubb and might have some really good sneaky value. So Jerome Ford, stock up for him. I think he showcased that, maybe they don't need Hunt and they might be in a rebuild, especially with Watson kind of maybe losing a whole year. This might be the year that they just give Jerome Ford a lot of run and, see what they got in him long term. So those are my 4 running backs or 3 running backs that I felt increased kind of their draft stock the most. Let's get to some wide receivers. I'm going to talk about 3 that I really want to talk about and 1 I'm just going to comment on. But first, first and foremost, George Pickens. He was my fourth wide receiver pre-draft in my Devy ranks. I've loved this kid for a long time. Not going to lie, I put a video out on this YouTube channel really showcasing his skills. And listen, we know everything about what we saw for Pickens at Georgia, right? Body control, length, route running ability. The big question I had was just his intangibles, and he took a lot of plays off at Georgia. And even in this game, you can see him pushing guys down in the running game, physical, getting in guys' faces and stuff like that. Still a little concerned about all that craziness because I think as a rookie, you might want to be a little bit more humble, but you kind of love the tenacity too. So I'm kind of like on the fence on both of those. But he had 3 receptions for 43 yards and the 1 TD in the back right corner of the end zone. It's all over Twitter. You know what? Steelers always seem to draft good wide receivers. I've got many, many shares of Pickens, so I'm pretty happy. Just want him, just relax. You know you're good. Just don't get too crazy out there and don't become like a Claypool on that team that kind of gets in the doghouse. But I've said ever since he got drafted at the Steelers, I thought it was the best landing spot for him because Tomlin ain't going to take his shit. Tomlin was going to sit him down and been like, yo, son, you're a good player. Let's tone it back a little bit. So as a disciplinarian, I think Tomlin is the great spot. He couldn't have landed in a better spot as far as I'm concerned. So stock up for Pickens. All right. Player I really like, and it was really funny because SHAKIR I had as my 13th ranked wide receiver pre-draft. I was a little lower on him than most, but man, he had some impressive catches. He was 5 for 5 for 92 yards, and he's got a great opportunity at the Bills. I mean, we got Diggs there, as we know, and the other kid, it's escaping my mind right now. Oh, Gabriel. So he could potentially be the number 3 guy on that. And what a great landing spot. Going to play with Allen for the next decade. I mean, got some ability to integrate himself in. So got a few shares of him in my late rookie rounds and rookie drafts. Had a couple Devy shares. So again, stock up, I think, for SHAKIR. I think he has a really good opportunity to make an impact this year on your Dynasty roster. All right, Danny Gray. I think we have to talk about Danny Gray, right? 3rd round draft pick. He had 4 targets. He secured 2 of them for 99 yards and the big TD that we saw, Trey Lance throw the ball down the left sideline. Kid's got speed, right? That's what he was drafted for. Round 3 draft capital, right? So your eyes have to be open on a 49ers offense. And if he's got a quarterback with Trey Lance with that big arm, there's sweet music possibly to be made in the 49ers. I mean, of course, you got Debo there, you got Brandon Ayuk, you got Kittle. But after that, I feel like it might be a little wide open where he might be that sneaky wide receiver 3 on that team come midseason where he's making plays like we saw this weekend on a regular basis. So if you got him, I just picked him up in my 5th round. Actually, we were drafting in one draft, and I picked him in my 5th round after I saw the highlights and said, well, shit, I'm going to take a shot with Danny Gray. I didn't have him ranked at all. I think most people pre-draft, really didn't, and the 49ers just kind of plucked him out of the air and was like, everyone's like, wow, Danny Gray, okay. Let that be a lesson to all of us. I know I learned, at least scouting, doing that what I love to do is scouting these players, especially for next year, is everyone's available. Just because all the draft nicks and, lists and out there, a lot of times, a lot of these players are chosen. The NFL is looking at all of these players. So, and the last guy I want to talk about is just Skyy Moore. I had him ranked 10th. I was a little critical of Skyy Moore. I just felt that his route running, he was twitchy, absolutely. Felt his route tree was very simple. And didn't know how that would translate. But listen, he lands in a great opportunity playing with Mahomes. Juju Smith-Schuster's there now, so I think, is he the Tyreek Hill, replacement? That's what everyone's hoping. But again, he showcased the one thing that Skyy Moore does have. He's got really good hands and body control. And he displayed that in the preseason game with that sideline grab. I saw many, many of those games, plays like that in college. So stock up for Skyy Moore. Probably going to be a better NFL player than I originally thought. But that's not a problem. So one player left to talk about. As like I always say, tight ends need love too. So there was really, all the tight ends really didn't do much except for Isaiah Likely for the Ravens. He had 4 balls. He had 4 targets for 44 yards. Of course, he's going to play behind Mark Andrews and probably Nick Boyle as the number 3. So Charlie Kohler was also drafted by the Ravens. You know that the Ravens love having quality tight ends. So Isaiah Likely didn't do himself, anything poor with that performance because Charlie Kohler's kind of nicked up. So maybe there's a chance that Isaiah Likely is going to get on the field this year for the Baltimore Ravens. So again, out of all the tight ends, I didn't see much of any of the other guys. So I hope you enjoyed the show, man. That's it. I just wanted to kind of go through the guys that I felt maybe, increase their draft stock a little bit. So again, if this is your first time here, welcome. Hit the show. I'm going to do one of these after each week here leading up to the season. Going to have all sorts of Dynasty content as the season starts, as well as Devy films and all the good stuff on my channel. So again, thank you for watching.